Hi everyone, my name is Megan Deister and I'm an occupational therapy student. And today I have Bobby with me, who has volunteered to talk about her experience as a care partner with her husband. So Bobby, thank you so much for being here, and I'm very excited for you to share your knowledge and your stories. Um, and so we kind of talked a little bit before about taking on new roles and responsibilities. Can you maybe share a little bit more about how you are adapting to new roles and responsibilities as a care partner?
Sure. As we said before, one of the biggest changes is that I'm now handling banking and bill paying and financial things. Pretty much, we have always had yours, mine, and our accounts. And so I pay the bills now from our joint accounts and handle pretty much everything. When we go to the grocery store, I pay the bills, or pay for things when we go out, and that's a real different thing from the way we used to have it. 2 years ago, my husband felt like he needed help with that, so it was good that he was able to guide me through the beginning part of the online bill paying and answer questions, as I know there's a lot of people who are care partners who are suddenly thrust into that, and um, they just have no clue about how to take care of it because their partner has always been the one that handled that.
Yeah, it sounds like you're really having to adapt to these new roles and situations. Could you talk about maybe a little bit more about how you process all of the different changes? You kind of mentioned that, sometimes it could be dependent on the day or the month where you see different changes in your husband. So, do you mind maybe sharing a little bit more about how you adapt to those different changes and kind of handle that yourself?
Sometimes I don't feel like I'm adapting very well. it's it's just a day-to-day basis, and feel like some days were great. This morning we got up, we had coffee together, we talked. He's now downstairs watching something on Netflix, and it's he's always been one that has done a lot of since he retired. He's worked on writing books and playing games on his computer, and I find that he needs a little more help with some things on the computer, which I'm a retired school teacher, so I did computer stuff, but I've had to figure out ways to help him, like play his game if he gets frustrated or find what he's looking for. That's something that I've really had to adapt to and think, okay, I can do this because I learned a long time ago on with teaching how to work on it, but I just kind of let it go because I spend my my time on my iPad more. The other thing that's been more difficult for both of us to adapt to is that we used to do a lot more with sharing responsibilities in the kitchen. He would cook every other night, and the person that cooked was not the person that cleaned up. And I have found that I'm taking over almost all of the cooking. Every once in a while, he'll say he wants to make something, and I kind of have to be there and guide him through it. Where he used to just figure everything out, just zip, 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 and it was done, and it tasted great. So, one thing that I have found, even just this past week, is that he gets very frustrated sometimes because he says that I'm not fixing something that he wants. And last night, he wasn't happy with what I'd chosen for dinner. And so we had to talk it over. And a big problem we have is that he has aphasia. And so he knew he wanted something. And I kind of say we play a lot of 20 questions games because he was telling me what he wanted, and he couldn't get out what he wanted. He knew it was chicken. Finally, I had my iPad with me and I Googled chicken and then went to images. And he showed me he wanted to roast chicken. So, that's the kind of thing that I'm kind of figuring out on my own. And that was just last night. I was like, holy cow, this is something that, we'll just have to do more. And then he was trying to tell me where he wanted to go, and he was kind of giving me directions on where he wanted to go. And so I took the iPad and pulled up a picture of the hen house market, asked if that's where he wanted to go to get his chicken, his roast chicken. And at first, that's kind of what he wanted to do. And so we drove over there. We live in Shawnee. And so we drove to the Lenexa Hy-Vee. And no, that's not where I want to go. I want to go to the one down the road. Oh, you mean Sprouts? Yeah. So he was like, yeah, I know exactly how to get there. So I just let him guide me to where he wanted to, the direction he wanted to go to Sprouts. And we got over there and picked out some things he wanted to have for dinner. And it was relatively successful because he felt happy that he had his input. And I think that's going to be something where I'm going to have to come up with a little bit more. It's like, if he can't get out what he's wanting to get across to me, besides just questioning, maybe use Google images. Is this what you want? No. Is this what you want? Sometimes that seemed like it worked. And that was just last night. So things change.
That is, I think that's amazing that you kind of figured that out on the fly. And, that's a great example of adapting. And I think that was a very clever solution too, to kind of figure out and help that communication piece, because I'm sure that's probably frustrating for both of you, for sure at
It
times.
really is. And, I have to say one thing that's really helped me is that I was an elementary art teacher, and it's like 5, 6 classes a day with decision making all day long. And when you teach art, you don't have like a textbook like math or reading where you do just exactly what's prescribed. You have to think of solutions constantly. And it's helped me a lot in dealing with this because I learned that thinking on the fly, figuring stuff out is going to be my life from now on.
Um, with those things, if you don't have an answer right away, do you have any specific like resources or people that you talk to maybe talk about situations that you're having a difficult time with?
Well, our daughter is a teacher and she's been teaching abroad, and she is now living with us. It's a big adjustment, and my husband gets very frustrated with the fact that they are very much alike, and he doesn't want her bossing him around. And it's another person that's in his life, and he feels he's getting more feelings like frustration that he can't drive, and two women are telling him what to do. But at the same time, I tell her that she's kind of like my support dog, my emotional support dog. We both laugh about that because if I get really frustrated, I can talk to her, and I feel comfortable doing it. Um, the thing that you find is people that know Jerry and know us. A lot of times I'm not real comfortable talking to them about what's going on because I want them to be able to interact with him still in a good way. And if I air my frustrations to them, then I feel like that's going to be uncomfortable for them or me. I don't know. It's still difficult for me when we go out and he interacts with people and wants to tell his same stories over and over again. And I know that's really a dementia thing, but it's frustrating. And sometimes I just have to kind of keep my mouth shut and realize that they haven't heard it and go with that flow.
Yeah, I think that's also a very good point of finding that support system. And I'm so happy you have your daughter. And sometimes what it takes is, one person to be able to kind of vent to or bounce ideas off of. And also the importance of acknowledging that you are allowed to be frustrated and you are allowed to feel however you want to feel, because this is can be an incredibly frustrating situation. It can be rewarding, but it can also be frustrating. So I think that's great that you have a support system that you're able to kind of identify those emotions and kind of feel those as they are. Another question I have is, it seems like you do a lot for your husband, but do you have anything that you enjoy doing for yourself as kind of an outlet for everything going on?
Yeah, I have a book club that I'm a member of, and that's another good place for me to talk to people because there's several people that have husbands that have health issues, and I'm in the book club with three very good friends, but I find that there's one woman who's dealing with dementia for her mom, and there's a woman whose husband has Parkinson's, and there's another woman there that's husband has dementia issues. And sometimes we just get together or we sit by each other and we can talk about what we're going through. And it's not me dealing with my friends. And it's harder for me to bear myself to somebody that's a close friend than somebody that's going through this. And I was thinking the other day, I really wish that there was somebody that also had a husband with dementia that I knew that we could maybe do social stuff with, because that would be great because they get a social outlet and the other person and I would too. And COVID has made such a big difference. I think it's hurt him mentally and socially because we've been so isolated. And I kind of wonder if maybe he would be in a better place today if it wouldn't been for the last time with social isolation and spending so much time without traveling and doing some of the things he really loves to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's definitely something that I'm sure other people have those thoughts too of, what if, the whole pandemic didn't happen, would be in a different situation. So I think that's totally valid. And I'm sure other people have that same thought and that same wonder. Um, but I do want to acknowledge like you have made it through a lot and it sounds like you've been a great support to your husband as well, despite everything that has gone on the last couple of years. Um, and again, kind of finding that support system. And I'm really glad that you have something like that book club that you really enjoy.
And I think that I need to join the in-person caregiver support group that the Alzheimer's Association or KU has. And it's just a matter of sometimes I feel really overwhelmed and I just don't know if I want to add that to my plate or not.
Yeah, I think feeling overwhelmed is definitely a normal feeling. When you are kind of feeling overwhelmed, do you have anything like, how do you process that and kind of bring yourself out of that feeling?
Um, I lose myself in a book and I find that I was telling my daughter that I read on my iPad and the kind of books that I've been choosing are a lot different than what I used to choose. And I'm doing a lot of really escapist books that probably before this happened, I wouldn't be reading, but sometimes I read till 2 in the morning because I get in bed with my iPad and that kind of is my way that I can curl up and get into something. And I've always been a reader. When I was a kid, I used to read with a flashlight under the covers. when everybody thought I was asleep. So that's one thing that's been good. I really thought after I retired that I would do more art, and I need to do some more of that because I think that would help me too. But it's that's another kind of thing that the idea of doing it sometimes puts more pressure on me, where I feel like, oh, I just don't know if I want to try to do that right now, even though it's one of my favorite hobbies. And so my biggest escape thing really is just reading.
That's great that you have reading, and thank you for sharing that about it kind of being your way to kind of, I guess, more so relax. And I think that's also a common feeling of, feeling overwhelmed and maybe almost a feeling of like guilt if you want to do some of these hobbies, like you said, painting or doing more art. Um, but knowing that in the long run, you making time for yourself to do those things is just as important as, being a care partner, because you need to take care of yourself as well and allow yourself to enjoy those moments that you have. um, but my final question for you would be, what piece of advice do you have for someone who is becoming a care partner or is maybe going through a rough time? What piece of advice would you like to share with them?
Um, One of the biggest things that I think is to find somebody you can talk to. And I'm fortunate that I have the social worker that I can go and see every 2 weeks. If people are in a position where they don't have that, I think they need to find somebody that they can vent to, that they feel comfortable venting with, and that they can call or visit and say, "Hey, I just really need some time to talk to somebody." And another thing that I found, we had the Alzheimer's Association and KU had a meeting uh, where people could go and hear from different experts in the field for, and I heard the idea of redirecting, and I that's something that I really need to practice more with him because, for example, last weekend he was he's got an electric lawnmower and he loves mowing the lawn. Which is, kind of like his thing. He likes to go out and do and feel accomplished, but he had trouble with the lawnmower starting and he couldn't get it going. And I went out and we figured out that he was using the wrong battery charger and got everything sorted. And then I said, well, let's go up and get the patio ready and pull out the table and clean it off and pull out the flower pots. And we did that for a while, but then it was super windy and we went into the garage. And I thought, oh, I was going to do da da da, and I need your help to do that. And so we rearranged some things in the garage and got it to be a lot more easier to get things put away. And we both felt like we accomplished something. And he forgot about mowing the lawn, and he got a feeling of that he did something anyway. And he really likes it when he can like show that he's the man and he can move things around that I can't move. Even though, like, my daughter said, she goes into him and says, "Daddy, would you please open this jar? I just can't do it." She really can, but it's like that kind of stuff. If you can find some things that your partner can do still that makes them feel better about themselves, it really can help. Because I know one of the things we've been dealing with lately is he's very, very frustrated that he's not supposed to drive, and we sold his car. And this past week, it's just been a recurring thing. I can't drive. you're making me so mad. Why can't I do this? There's no reason I can't drive. And we keep saying why he can't drive. And it's just, I figured out a way to redirect that. It's like, sorry, it's not happening. And, I use the thing because he's usually very good about, well, if doctor or so and so says, his GP he really loves. Well, Dr. So and so says you can't do that. He's usually okay. Or Dr. So and so says you need to walk every day. Okay, we'll do that. Driving is not one of those things.
I think you made a lot of great points and gave a lot of great pieces of advice. Like the redirecting is a big thing, and it's also like a skill that can be pretty difficult to learn, and again trying to adapt to different situations. But also mentioning like finding something that he can do, like opening a jar or something like that, kind of helps maintain their dignity and gives them still like a sense of purpose and that they're needed and that they can help with these activities, and finding the shared activities that you can do together. I think those are all really great strategies. And I think that's great that you are able to do those things with him. But Bobby, thank you so much for everything you've shared, and giving all of these great words of advice for other care partners. So thank you so much for being willing to do this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I've enjoyed doing it.